Ha! I had the volume off. Well, you saw me jamming in the dark. All right. Catching my breath. We've got a new angle. Hello. Hello down up there. How's it going? It's Ken from Flowtricks, and always gotta catch my breath after doing the little showcase, because I'm an old man now. Oh, wow. Give me just a second here. As you can see, I am clearly trying to iron through some technical difficulties still. Give me just a second while I make sure that I can see what everyone has to say. Hello, Marcel. How are you? It's good to see you again, man. So today we're going to do staff basics. Now, staff for me is a little bit different than a lot of staff spinners. Mine kind of blends between the martial arts style staff spinning. Come on, Ken. Come on. Martial arts style staff spinning, that's a tongue twister, and flow art style. The mix is more circles than martial arts, but not so contacty. You can definitely, the beautiful thing about staff, in my opinion, like every single prop that you use has its own little signature and specialty. The thing I love about staff is how still it is. Like a chuck or a poi, they just kind of dangle. It's kind of funny to say, but what I mean to say is, like with the staff, because it holds still, you can focus more on body movement and accentuations because it's not waiting for you to do something as opposed to a chuck. If I was standing here and the chuck was just hanging downward, it just feels like it needs to move. But with the staff, I feel like you can go into deeper poses. So I feel like it's one of those props that's not necessarily looked at as deeply as it should, but because it's a static prop, it doesn't have to like fall or go anywhere. You don't have to keep it in motion. You can hold it still and do really cool poses. I feel like it's not looked at as deeply or taken as seriously as it could. So the style that I'd like to teach you is all about creating beautiful circles and being able to move with it with your body. Before we begin, I'd like to still try to catch my breath. Before we begin, also just want to thank Flow Toys and Dark Monk. They're the sponsors. Especially in these times, they are super appreciated. And of course, got to thank all the viewers. I hope you guys are doing well. I know the Corona thing is getting kind of crazy. I read that there's a potential we might be here on and off, isolating ourselves between 12 months to 16 months. Something you might want to look into, but we might be in it for the long haul, and something to think about. Just look it up if you have any questions. I don't want to get into that too much, but it is good to be prepared. So I'm trying to do my best to even to make these types of live streams and videos more accessible. Now, with that said, I don't really want to get too far into talking and philosophy quite yet. I kind of want to just go straight into the staff spinning. So the way this is going to work is we're going to start from the very beginning, and I think I'm even going to start with some stretches. So you just follow along with me. But every few minutes, I'm going to check back here and make sure there's no questions, because the whole point of a live stream is for interactivity. So if you have any questions, please be sure to ask, because otherwise you could just watch videos. Here, I can actually answer you. So with that said, hey, I remember, I keep Flows back. How's it going? Good to hear from you again. Looks like Ken Hertz is on the boat, at least right now. The question before we begin is bow staff more difficult than nunchaku? And I would have to say no. I don't feel that staff is more difficult. I actually find it to be easier, but I also find it to be a little bit more fun in some ways. The chucks is like a motorcycle. It's like a high-speed prop, and you have to have a lot of control and versatility. Where the staff, you don't have to keep it in motion so quickly in order to maintain control, because again, it doesn't fold. It's a solid prop. This is also why I like to recommend staff spinning to a lot of people, because it's such a nice prop just to walk into. Give me just a second here. All right. So whether or not you joined me yesterday with the nunchucks, we got to start from the beginning. Before we start here, though, I'm going to show you a couple stretches. Usually I like to warm up just a little bit, do a little bit of spinning before we start practice. Now, if this is your first time, that's okay. What we're going to do is just kind of warm up our wrists just a little bit. And just kind of take your wrists and kind of shake them like this. While we go through this class, Okay, so one thing you might want to know about me right now is like either my brain is on laser focus where I just pinpoint and I just sear through anything, or it's just like a rainbow of explosions. And right now, my mind is all over the place just because of all the craziness that's been happening. So you have to excuse me. It'll get into focus soon. So you're just gonna kind of shake your wrist out for very lightly. It's almost like you have water on your hands and you're trying to fling it. Obviously not onto other people right now. You're flinging it, make believe, not onto other people. All right. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our palm and we're gonna kind of put it at belly button level like so. We're gonna make sure that our elbow is kind of tucked pretty close by our waist. And you're just gonna basically lift up. You're basically gonna grab with your other hand, thumb to thumb, and then the fingers around the fleshy part of the underneath the pinky finger. And we're just gonna basically lift up and we're gonna push down as we lift up. Now we're not gonna do this hard. The point of a stretch is just to feel a nice gentle tension. You don't wanna go too far. What you wanna do is just kind of push until you feel a very nice tension and then just hold it. I generally like to count to at least 10, sometimes longer. When I really wanna get flexible, I'll just play music and just hold it for a while. All right, and then just very slowly ease out of it. Shake it off for a second. We'll do the other hand, okay? Palm kind of by the solar plexus area, elbow kind of tucked in. We're gonna grab fingers around the fleshy part underneath the pinky finger, and the other is kind of thumb matching the thumb like this. And we're gonna bend it downward. It's gonna go downwards and up. So we're gonna bend the wrist downward, but we're gonna pull up at the same time, but not too hard. Again, you just want a nice little tension right here. Whenever I injure myself, this is the part that I injure the most, and it's usually with nunchucks, because when I go too fast or too furious, I get this flare that's in the back of my wrist. It was no fun. All right, I'm gonna push it back down, ease it out nice and easy. All right, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of hold our hand out straight like so. So we're holding our hand out horizontally. And we're gonna bend our elbow towards our chest like this. This one's gonna be a little bit awkward to get into, but it's a really good stretch. So trust me on this one. Actually, let's just say like we're gonna take our thumb, it's like we're gonna put our thumb in our belly buttons almost. What this should do is create a 90-degree angle this way, and then we want a 90-degree angle this way. So bend 90 degrees here, then a 90-degree angle this way, right? And what we're gonna do from here is we're gonna take our hand and we're gonna rotate it upwards. So our elbow's facing up towards the sky. We've got the thumb reaching for the fleshy part of the pinky finger, and the rest of our fingers are grabbing under. It's kind of weird, but it's almost like if my hand was pointed to the outside, we're just reaching under and grabbing it like so, but we're bending it. So what you're trying to think of is this is kind of like a piston to some degree, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to twist the wrist upwards like this to get a nice stretch down below. So again, we're gonna go bend it here 90 degrees, bend it here 90 degrees, reach under. It's almost like the palm is facing the same direction as the other hand. Thumb's gonna reach around the fleshy part of the pinky, and then the other fingers grab underneath here. And what you're gonna do is you're just gonna slowly bend it upwards. Again, with all these stretches, you wanna go nice and easy. You're gonna slowly bend it upwards until you feel a nice stretch. You're kind of thinking like this is almost like a lever, and you don't wanna touch your nose, but you're kind of pulling it towards your nose like this until you feel a nice stretch. Again, this is not something that you do hard. Do it until you feel a nice, gentle tension, and then just hold it there. I'm going to slowly put it back. We're going to do the exact opposite thing on the other hand. So again, we're going to it's almost like we're putting our thumb into our belly buttons. Make sure your elbow is bent 90 degrees. This is 90 degrees, like this and this. And then the other hand is going to reach over to the other side, so they're kind of matching. They're on opposite ends, as you can see. Thumb is grabbing where the pinky finger's at, and then the hands are reaching where the thumb's at, like this and this. And again, just think of this as like a lever. We're just kind of pulling this lever upwards. That's the whole point of this stretch, is to pull this up like this. So we're going to we're going to grab it and pull it up ever so slightly. Again, this is kind of a hard stretch to get into, but it's really good. I think that everyone should be doing these stretches. I actually think these are Aikido stretches. I may be wrong. It's been a long time since I remember the origin of where I learned these stretches. It was definitely in martial arts though. But it's something I used to do. I should have done it yesterday in the nunchuck class because that's really where you need it. But even with staff, with any kind of training where you do a lot of rotations with your hand, it's really good just to have these ready to go. And again, before you stretch, it's usually good to warm up. Since this is a very beginner class, we're just going to do this lightly, and I just want to get this going so you can kind of have a basic feel. But generally speaking, you want to do this, do like a 3 to 5 minute warm up, just like how you saw me warming up before I stretched. The next thing we're going to do is like we're going to karate chop our own nose. It's going to be like this. So take your hand and chop it like you're going to just hit your nose, right? Then what you're going to do now is you're going to grab the fleshy part of your thumb like this, and the thumb on your right hand is going to kind of push on the back of the pinky finger. So I karate chop my nose, I reach over, and basically I just grab like this. Now, what's going to control everything is this thumb that's pushing across the back of my pinky finger. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull downwards. You're not going to feel anything. So this hand is just pulling downwards like this. You won't actually feel much of a stretch because you're actually twisting and pulling at the same time. It's almost like you're twisting this direction as you're going down. And again, do this nice and easy. It's almost like you could wave hello to yourself, but basically it's twisting your wrist this direction. So karate chop your nose. Grab the fleshy part of your thumb. Use the back of your right thumb to like push against the pinky finger, and slowly go down. Slowly pull the hand down, while at the same time twisting outward. And again, the whole point, I don't want to hear anyone breaking their wrists doing this. The whole point of this is just to get a nice stretch into your wrist. All right. Count to 10 or so. Or 20. All right, I'm gonna release this up, and we're gonna do the exact opposite with the other hand. So karate chop the nose, I'm gonna grab the fleshy part of the thumb, we're reinforcing with the thumb on the back of the pinky finger, like this, and we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna slowly pull it down as we twist it outward. This one, you can say I have a little bit more flexibility on this hand. I can almost wave hello to you. And slowly pull it downward. It should feel pretty good. If it feels uncomfortable, you might be going a little too hard. Just give it enough of a pull to where you can feel a nice stretch. All right. Then we're gonna release. We're gonna shake it out just a little bit more. Last but not least, we're gonna do something very simple. Now, there's so many different variations of shoulder stretches, but right now I just think we're gonna go opposite like this, and we're just gonna do shoulder circles. If I do a double staff tutorial, maybe soon, then we'll start working on like different motions that you can do with your arms that you can practice with. But this is one of them, actually. It's the easiest of them. All right, we're gonna go the opposite way. I didn't even describe this to you because I just assumed you knew what it was. But the trick is if you can imagine that you're reaching towards your fingertips and slightly past that, you'll get an even better stretch than if you were just thinking, I'm going to swing my arms in a circle. But really trying to clear into your fingertips and slightly past it, you'll get a nice stretch that way. A little bit better than if you were just thinking, I'm going to move my hands in a big circle. So really emphasize like you're trying to reach past where your body can physically go, and you get a nice stretch out of it. Obviously, don't do that. If you succeed in doing that, please teach me. All right, I'm going to answer a couple questions. I think I see something up here, and then we'll get into the basics of staff. All right. So I need to change this. You have to excuse my slowness. I'm still getting used to how I'm going to do this kind of setup. This is a lot easier of an angle than the last one, but it's a little bit high. All right, so IKeyFlow says, what length of staff are you going to be using? I'm using a 4-foot staff, and I'll explain the different lengths in a minute. But for me, there's a good reason why I use this specific length. So it's not quite a bow staff length at all, because a lot of bow staffs are generally like 5 foot to 6 foot. Kalu Patel says, hey Ken, this is great. Hey, it's great. I'm glad you could join us. And awesome. Okay, I had a feeling it was Aikido stretches. It's been a while. Hostel Graveyard, fashionably late. What's up, Hostel? All right, let's get back. If you all have any questions again, be sure to ask away. I'm gonna come back here. Sounds like we're good so far. Technically speaking, I have more fun teaching basic nunchuck classes because the staff, while it's easier, the first couple moves, I'm not gonna say they're boring, I just think nunchucks are flashier than a staff at first. but once you pass that curve, it gets a little bit more exciting. So the very first thing that I want to talk about before we do anything, as I exit here, first thing I want to talk about before we do anything is different kinds of staffs. Now, someone already asked what the length of my staff was, and I said 4 feet. And the reason why I do 4 feet is because it allows me to easily transition between single and double. I'm using 2 totally different weights, by the way, between single and double. So the reason why, now everyone's gonna have their own preference as to length of the staff, but for me, I like to be able to transition from single to double. And another reason why I like to use 4 feet is because I do a lot of techniques where my staff would hit the ground, because I do waist techniques that you can't do with the longer staff. Longer staffs look flourishing, and they usually are more impressive to a crowd. Usually the bigger your prop is, the more exciting it is to a crowd. But this is kind of like, to me, this is a good balance between versatility as well as having the ability to do moves that you could not do with the longer staff. Generally, I don't like the shorter staffs because anything shorter than this, I feel like just doesn't have enough oomph. But once we get longer, then when you start doing the ground motions like this, you're hitting the ground and it prevents you from doing those moves. So again, because I do a lot of waist motion, I like to keep it shorter. So how do you hold a staff? You know, with nunchucks, we have many different kinds of grips. With 2 hands, you usually have, you know, back grip, front grip, and then you have the different variations. With this one, generally speaking, you need to know where the center is. And again, if you don't have a point, mine has a nice little point in the center that tells me where the center balance is. You want to find it by just holding out 1 or 2 fingers and figure out where it balances. The cool thing is, and I probably don't have it with me, this center of balance idea goes with just about every single prop you can think of. So yesterday, we were talking about center of balance with the nunchucks, which is right here. Today, we're talking about center of balance, boom, center of balance with the staff, which is right here. But even if you can figure it out, say even on a sword, you can do a lot of the same techniques between what you learn with staff and chucks with the sword if you know where that center of balance is, because everything relates to, to where all the force is generated basically, and that's going to be the ends and the middle. All right, I want to just make sure I don't have any questions really quick here. Technically a Joe staff. Okay, nice. That is true. So the other thing I want to talk about is something we went over yesterday. So I'm going to cover this, but we're going to cover this again. You have 4 planes. If you can think of yourself encased in a cardboard box, there's basically going to be 4 pieces of cardboard that make you stuck within the box if you're pushing, you know, horizontally at all. One is going to be the box that's in front of you, the wall that's right here. I like to call this the front plane. I believe that's what they call it. And then you're going to have a piece of cardboard here and here. You're going to have walls here basically. This is the wheel plane. If you want to think of like cars on a wheel, they kind of rotate in the same way. So whenever you're spinning your hands and your hands are going kind of in front of you, that's the wheel plane. But if I turn to the side, this is also the wheel plane because it's in relative to where my body's at. So here is the wheel plane. This is still the wheel plane because my body dictates where these planes are. And then of course there's a back plane. Now we also have horizontal ones, but we're not going to get into that because most of our spinning right now is going to be covered on these planes. Actually, most of it's going to be on the front plane, as you can totally see. And the reason for that is whenever we're spinning, whenever I spin, I generally try to make as many circles as I can. So when I'm spinning in front of an audience, when they see the circles, especially when you have fire or LEDs, when they see the circles, they'll be able to appreciate the patterns that you're creating. Because most audience members don't know your techniques at all. Only spinners know your techniques. So they'll get something different when they watch you spin. But the audience, what they see is, they see, if this was lit up, they just see that I have basically this paintbrush of LEDs and I'm painting with light in the air. If you can think of it that way, then you start thinking about, well, what kind of patterns can I create with this crazy paintbrush in motion? And that's kind of what you're doing. You're creating like geometric shapes. Usually I go for circles, you know. Sometimes I go for squares or diamonds, but most of the time it's circles. It's really quite interesting that, I'll explain that one later. But so generally speaking, what we want to do is try to keep it on the front plane, or if we turn to the side, then it's going to be wheel plane to the audience so they can see as many circles as possible. If I don't face the audience, let's say I disregard the audience, they can still see it, but you can see the pattern completely changes. So if you were the audience right now, and I was spinning for you, you would see it, but you wouldn't quite totally get the full effect of what I was doing unless I turned the circles to you. As opposed to, I know it's very subtle, and sometimes, especially as spinners, we can't see it as good as the audience people can, but most of the time the audience don't know what we're doing. They just see the pretty patterns that you're creating. So it's very important to think about that, which is why we created planes. Now, real quick, we went over this yesterday, but I still want to go over this again. The easiest way to get good planes is to stand by a wall and to spin your prop by the wall without ever touching it. So this is a wall over here, for instance. If I were to spin, I would want to, even if I was to swing, like we don't know any techniques yet, but if I were to swing my staff, I want to make sure it never touches the wall. So even if I go up and down, if I accidentally hit the wall, that means there's a diagonal motion. And if there's diagonal motion, you're going to lose a little bit of that circle. So what we're trying to do is create the cleanest lines. We'll probably get into that a little bit more once we get into a couple techniques. But this is also used for, especially with staff, it's the ability to know where the wall is a huge deal with how you need to position your arm. It will dictate how you move your arms, especially with footwork. So especially with staff, even more with nunchucks, planes become a little bit more important, especially as we start to do, because there's a lot of footwork that you can do with the staff. But with that said, we do have to start at the very beginning. And the very first staff move I want to teach you is just the rotor. I say just the rotor. I feel like this is an essential move, but it's not my favorite to teach. Okay, so what we're going to do, oh boy, did I just sell this one up or what? What I'm going to do is, this is the center of the staff. I'm going to grab slightly to the left of the staff. I'm going to move this really quick here. Give me just a second. Sorry. All right, so there's the center of the staff. You can see the black line. I'm grabbing slightly over past the center. That's because both my hands are going to be spinning this staff. So wherever I grab, it's going to be symmetrical with the other hand, right? So I'm grabbing with my left hand, and this is simply because I'm a right-handed spinner that we're going to start this way. So if you are a left-handed spinner, you'll start by grabbing with your right hand and do the exact opposite of what I'm saying. This is why I'll go a little bit slow, because the left-handers will have to do it a little bit slower. Okay, they have to translate it. Basically, I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to twist it, and we're going to go counterclockwise until my palm faces towards the sky. You can notice that my hand does like this pinch grip. Yesterday someone asked how to get better grip, and I said spin a staff, because a lot of the great staff moves that I find require like this grip that happens between the pointer finger and the thumb. It's almost always relying on this, especially when you have super flexible moves. Whereas if you grab with all your fingers, it becomes more rigid, this becomes more smooth. So you'll have to learn how to tighten this grip, otherwise your staff will be flying out of your hands. Matter of fact, most of the time that I lost my staff was because I didn't have a reinforced grip. So I have learned to grip this thing like so nice. So nice. We won't even get into that, but yeah, there's been a couple performances where I've had a fire staff fly out of my hands, in the early days. So we're going to twist it all the way over until the palm is facing towards the sky. And then the other palm, yeah, it's actually just a palm. The other hand is going to grab underneath like this. We're going to do the exact same grip, as you can see. So I'm grabbing it between my thumb and my pointer finger. My left hand lets it go. And then we're going to continue the motion all the way until the thumb points down. See, my thumb is pointing down. From there, my left hand is going to reach over the top, and I'm going to kind of grab as close to the center as I can from where my other one is. And you can see my thumb's pointing down here too. You don't have to point your thumb down, but this is just a good reference to start. And my right hand lets go. You're going to twist it all the way. Keep going, until your palm is back up. And then you're going to do the same thing. I'm going to go over this a couple times so you can see this. This is a rotor. There's actually a lot of ways to do a rotor. This is one way to do a rotor. So we have the palm facing up towards the sky. We grip underneath like this, release, twist, grab it till my thumb faces down. Boo! Other hand is reaching over till the thumb faces down. Let go. Wow. Whoosh. And then just kind of work on this until it feels nice and fluid. Now, it's going to take some time. The transitions between your grips and making sure that the staff continues to spin smoothly is what you want to make sure you have. and then you'll slowly be able to speed it up a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. Oops. Practice that for a couple minutes. If you have any questions, give me a holler. I'm gonna go up and answer whatever questions I see and greet people. Keep practicing the rotor. I'll do it one more time. Grab it with the left hand, slightly off center, all the way to the palm up. Reach underneath, grab it, let it go with the hand that was originally grabbing it. Keep twisting in the same direction until your thumb's down. So palm up, thumb down. Palm up, grab, thumb down, grab. Palm up, grab, thumb down, grab. And just keep switching back and forth. Okay. I am here to answer some questions. Let's go to the bird's eye cam. All right. Ike Flow, hi, hey Hostel. Blame it on my extreme case of ADHD. Don't worry, we all got ADHD, I feel like. All right, here. Occasional reminders to breathe. It's Ken Hill. Been watching since you were 13, Hostel? That's amazing. That's awesome. I've only been watching since I was 30, but you know. Follow up query. How do you keep your hands closed in motion? Learning how to keep hands closed in motion. Hostel's asking how to keep the hands closed in motion. I guess I don't quite understand the question though. I'll go over here and see if I can mimic it though. Keeping the hands closed in motion. I'm trying to think of what you might mean by that. Once you grip, all your force is between the thumb and the pointer finger until the staff kind of rests itself right where you can just close your fingers and keep it in grip. And then you're going to twist it all the way upside down, and pretty much you keep it closed until the exchange. So the other hand is going to grab, but you just wrap your fingers over it as much as you can while this hand lets go. So it's going to stay closed as it's moving until you reach a point where you can absolutely not twist it anymore. But we get a little bit more rotation by just kind of pinching it here and opening our hands, and that allows it to go all the way through this direction. And then we grab it. Again, I usually say I would say like 70% of my strength comes from just these two fingers, and these just kind of guide it around just a little bit, but it's mostly between these two fingers. I hope that helps. If you're practicing right now, keep spinning this. What I'd like to see is if you can just get a nice, even, steady spin with this. So keep going. Whoosh, whoosh. All right, go back to the main camera here. All right, I'm getting a little faster at this. It's slowly but surely happening. The thumb seems to have a kind of stabilizing effect when performing a wrist roll. Why is this? Well, I feel like the thumb is kind of like your big toe. The thumb and the big toe, like when you're trying to keep your balance with your feet, it's your big toe that actually does a lot of the stabilizing motion. And in the same way, your thumb is huge. I'm guessing because it's the only one that's more independent from all the fingers, but your thumb plays a huge factor in a lot of things, and a lot of spinning, because I can't even imagine spinning a staff. You'd have to spin it like this if you didn't have use of your thumb. You could do it. It would just require an entirely different technical skill set. All right. So, hey, what's up, Spades? Good to hear from you. And I'm glad you got that, Hostel. I'm really glad to hear that. Don't ever be afraid to ask questions, because this live stream is all about me showing you something that I could have shown you on a video, and then you asking questions, which is something I can't do on a video live. All right, we're going to go back here. So we got the basic rotor. Oh, I got one more question. I just want to make sure. I've been spinning staff with my hands for years, but I have trouble beginning contact staff. Any advice on beginning contact staff? When it comes to contact staff, I know very little, and I have a huge respect for it. There's actually a gentleman that just came into the chat room who is amazing at it. Spinning Spades, the guy that just commented on YouTube, that guy is phenomenal. So you might actually want to look up Tyler Spades. I'm not sure if he has tutorial videos, but he's a fantastic person that can start you on that. Also, another person to look up is Noel, Noel Yee, Y-E-E. He is also another fantastic person. I'm pretty sure he has some contact staff tutorials as well. I do a little bit of contact staff, but most of it is mainly just, I'm in it for the speed. So I'm a big whirly ninja guy. But Tyler and Noel Yee, I think, are both good resources. You should be able to look them up and find some good stuff. So we have the rotor now, and obviously you want to be able to go backwards with it. You may not be able to do this at this speed. That just takes practice. That's going to be something you can do. And like I said in my nunchuck class, I want to make sure everyone gets this. When you're spinning a staff, if you're not getting a move, a lot of times it's muscle memory. If you've never done it before, it takes time for you to be able to develop it into something smooth. So if it looks a little clunky, sometimes the best thing you can do is turn on something off Netflix or turn on your favorite music and do something where you're not thinking about what you're doing. Just don't even think about it. Just start spinning it. If you drop it or mess up, then think about how it messed up or how it drops. But if it's feeling a little clunky, just kind of go with it while focusing on something else just ever so slightly. What that'll do is, because sometimes when you can't get a move, it's because you're overthinking. And so I find that if you put your focus on something else while you try to accomplish something, sometimes that's all you need to get through it. You just have to stop thinking about it so hard. And also, sometimes it's the exact opposite. And I'm totally looking at the wrong camera. I have two cameras set up now and I'm looking at the wrong one. Wait till you see what I can do soon though. I'm gonna be able to like draw lines with my hands where I'll be able to make better diagrams. The other thing that you want to consider is if you're not paying attention to it and you're still not getting it, it could be the exact opposite where you have to put intense focus on what you're doing. And what you want to look at is the ability to break apart a move into little pieces. Just like if you could do the rotor and I said, just do this, you may not know exactly what's wrong because you haven't broken it down into, oh, okay, is my hand completely up like this before I make the exchange? Am I gripping it and letting go? Like, have I gripped it before I let go, or is it falling out of my hands? So your ability to take apart moves is the alternate way to address any kind of issues that you have. First, try it without thinking though, because that's the easiest and requires, this is just the easiest way to do it, because a lot of times when people fumble, it's just their muscles aren't ready for it. If you don't get it that way, then see if you can break it apart like a scientist into little pieces until you can figure out what exactly went wrong. I'm going to show you a couple of very simple ninja exercises. This is kind of like miming, but I really enjoy it. I think it's a nice effect. And it's basically a concept that you can use. Because you're using a staff, you're not limited just to techniques, but how you present it. So what I'd like to present is something called the string, the brick, and the Bruce-Lee. And the way that this works is simply, it's more of a visual thing in your mind. And this is in my opinion, this is a great way to approach staff, because when you're spinning a staff, sometimes you just think technique, 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 just like with spinning. But sometimes it's presentation, presentation, presentation. So what I'd like you to do is imagine now that you have a bungee cord in your hand, and it's attached to your hand, and it's attached to the edge of a staff. And what I'd like you to do is go ahead and just kind of move your hand until you get to a certain point, maybe like 6 inches or so. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of pull my hand over like a half moon across to the other side. But what I'm imagining, I'm really just putting my brain into focus, into thinking, if this was attached to a bungee cord, how would it move? And it would slowly start to pull its way. So I'm slowly releasing with my hand as I'm imagining how this would move. Now, because it's a bungee cord, it's not going to be very stiff like this. It's not going to be like this. What it's going to be like is the slow, gradual. It's going to start off slowly, and then it's going to pick up speed. And then as I pull it backwards, there's going to be a little bit of a delay before it pulls back to where it started. So what I'm going to do, and this is called the string, and it's, again, this is just some made-up technique, but I just think it looks nice, especially when you're performing. You're grabbing the string, you're pulling it, but you're going to give it a little bit of leeway first before it starts to follow. And then as you twist it backwards, you're going to kind of let it pull, get some tension, and then pull it back to where it began. Whoosh, whoosh. Again, string, grabbing it, and this is all. A lot of this is visualization. Here, here. Now, one thing that helps, you can notice that I move my stance. And the reason for that, again, just like the nunchuck class that we taught, if I have no presentation with it, it can really just look like this. You know? But if you get it, if you lower your stance, you really get down into it, and you imagine that if you can imagine it, and you put like that feeling, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's getting heavier, so I'm like going to twist my hips to pull it back. All of a sudden it becomes more believable that this is a heavier object. Just like a mime, obviously, with the wall, you know, it doesn't exist. But because he did the motions, it exists in our imaginations, which creates presentation. String. So you can move it back and forth. It's a really easy one. You can also move it all the way to the other side, so we can grab it and go pull until we get it all the way to the other side like this. and then we can pull it back. Right? And obviously you can do the other side as well. Just make sure you have enough space for your hand. You can only twist your left hand so much. But that is the string. The brick is the exact opposite. Instead of pulling, you're pushing it. So the brick would be like, if you imagine there's a brick in your hand and you're pushing force, like invisible Jedi force underneath the staff. It's gonna, and you're basically, this one's gonna be a little bit more solid, but what you're trying to do whoosh, is almost like you're pushing something heavy through gravity, just rah. So what I like to do is I like to get my hips underneath and really try to make it look like I'm grabbing something that has a lot of weight, and it's almost like I'm underwater and I'm pushing through it. So whoosh, like that. Now from there, we can kind of mix it together, but go ahead and practice the string and the brick to start with. Again, this is more of a visualization and presentation technique, but it's really nice to do, especially if you're in a slow part of a song or you're in a part where you're ready to go crazy. Like sometimes when a song builds up into this epic moment, you don't want to put your high speed spinning in until it hits, so you need some slower stuff. This is usually a good one, because you're just building it up, getting people ready for the big drop or whatever you're trying to do, and then you can just go crazy. And already we're moving past the martial arts staff, because there's really no need to do the string or the brick with a combat staff. Unless they're afraid of clowns and mimes or whatever. All right, I'm gonna keep going here. Dropkick Corpse. I've been spinning staff with my hands for years. Oh, I already did that one. Sorry. Thanks, Noel and Tyler Yee. I'll check them out. Perfect. And yeah, of course, Spades. Man, I'm glad you're here. Yeah, no, you're an amazing. He is the guy. You gotta watch Tyler. Like, that guy is just insane. Hostile Graveyard. I've noticed baton twirlers don't take the same stance on locked fingers as Eskrima folks, if that makes any sense. You know, I know some baton twirlers, but I actually haven't studied enough. But I will say baton twirlers have all my respect. Like, they're really insane. The amount of technical skills that they have is pretty crazy. When it comes to art, especially with spinning, you know, like I do a sear wheel too, which is a giant wheel that you get into a coin, and you can roll around like a coin. But with spinning props, because there's less danger with the physics, you can be a lot more creative. So if you notice, like, for instance, a baton twirler does something different than the way I do it, check it out. See if there's something that you can learn from that, because there probably is. The cool thing about spinning is because it's not dangerous to make a mistake usually, it opens up a lot more possibilities for artistic expression. Whereas if I was in my wheel and I wanted to try something new or novel or different, there's a chance I could fall out of the wheel and hit my head on the concrete. Or if someone was doing aerials, for instance, you have to know more of the physics to be safe with what you're doing so you don't tear a muscle. With spinning, it's a lot more relaxed in that way, so you can be creative. So I think the nice thing is I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you see someone do something differently and you like it, check it out and see if there's something you can learn from it. Because especially with staff, there's so many ways, there's so many styles you can do with this. Well, that's pretty much with any spinning prop, really. Staff spinning tutorial playlist. Oh, okay. Tyler, if the staff spinning tutorial playlist doesn't come in, you can email me, ken.flowtricks@gmail.com, and I'll put it in the description of this video so people can access that. Okay, we're gonna go back to staff basics. I think we got everything here for now. Let's just head back over to the main camera. So, the presentation of the string and the brick really is just, again, in my opinion, it's for slower type motions. It's when the music's slower and you want to go crazy or you want to do something good, but you just need to get some presentation out. You can do that. You can also, I said there was one more, which is the Bruce Lee, and then we'll get back into the more of the typical staff spins. The Bruce Lee is kind of the same. It's kind of the same concept, okay? You may or may not have seen where Bruce Lee is moving his hands and it's looking all crazy wavy. That's kind of what we're trying to imitate with this motion. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna like get close into the audience's face, right? You're gonna hold the staff and you're gonna kind of hold the staff in front of them so they can see it. And then your other hand is gonna wave to the top. So you have a top and a bottom. And all that's gonna happen is your wrists are gonna lead. So at the bottom, the wrist goes up, and at the top, the wrist leads downward, like this. This in itself isn't like all that crazy, but you are just kind of, again, if you're just going crazy with your staff, all of a sudden you're like, whoosh, got this Bruce Lee thing going on. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna stop for a second. So it's like as you're moving here, you're almost gonna feel like you're gonna tighten up and just kind of, it's almost gonna pop and stop. So here, right? And what you're gonna try to do, and this is kind of fun, is see how your wrist can kind of bend downwards and upwards. You're gonna try to bend it down like this, and you're gonna give it a nice little flick. You're gonna try to flick the staff to the top of your hand. So the way this works is you're just gonna try, you can go nice and easy to start, but try not to move your arms so much. Just try to keep it in your wrist and throw it up in the air. Go nice and easy at first. If it doesn't go high enough, try it again, right? Nice and easy. If it's not high enough, go a little bit higher. And then the moment you feel it touch your hand, close it. So all of a sudden you're like that. So go ahead and try this again. Here. Like that. So I call it the Bruce Lee. It's just something, again, it's a presentation thing. I really like it. For me, it's like if I see someone watching me in my performance and I'm not doing a stage set, like a street show or something, get up in front of their face, something like that. Go ahead and give that a shot. I'll be back in like a minute or two. Perfect. All right, let's see here. I'm gonna just make sure we don't have anything. Hey, Seth. You're actually coming in at a perfect time. Yeah, come on in. Everyone, my son is here with me. Well,
hello.
It's kind of low. I know it's up there.
Okay, gotcha.
Right.
Hi.
Yeah, he's also I've taught him a little bit of staff spinning, but for the most part, he's kind of self-taught as well. Do you have any tricks you want to share?
Yeah, sure.
It's got to be a beginner trick if it is.
Beginner trick.
Yeah.
What do you think would be a good beginner trick?
Well, I just showed the rotor, which is just how to spin it in front of you. We're going to get into figure eight, so if you have anything simple, or either that or let's get you like closer to the end after they get a couple more tricks.
That sounds awesome.
Cool.
All right.
Well,
see you guys soon.
Yeah, well, that's my son. Gosh, he's taller than me. Like, he's taller. Like, man, it's crazy. He's supposed to graduate in 2 months, but since this whole Corona thing's happening, I mean, I don't know. Are they going to graduate from their laptops, or the school just sent a message and said that they have no idea when it's going to open again. I don't know. It's kind of crazy, right? Like, anyways. Let's see here. Okay, we're going to go back and let's go ahead and get back into the staff motions. Again, in my opinion, I feel like staff to start with is a little bit more challenging in terms of you got to learn a little bit more techniques that I feel is a bit more grind. But once you get to that point, it gets really fun. You just got to get past the initial grind. So we've got the rotor down. We've got the string, which is a presentation move. I feel like it's a very easy move, so it's a good way to start with. We also have the brick, which is another presentation move. You can mix the string and the brick, obviously, like you can string it here. Well, actually, and then you can break it. And then we have the Bruce Lee, right? And we flick it out. But you still need to have an arsenal of, well, standard flow moves. Right now we have the rotor, which is generally speaking on the front plane. Let's go ahead and start working on the wheel plane. So what I'd like to show you is, I kind of call it the box. I don't know exactly what the specific word is, but there's a flow that you can do with staff that takes you through all corners, basically. Having one of those days, y'all. It takes you through all of the planes. This one, as you can see, is the front plane. Now we're going to move it over to the left side. And it's going to be a little bit easier. We're basically going to do a figure eight to the left. So let me show you how this works. As soon as your thumb is facing down, so you're passing this counterclockwise, right? As soon as your left hand grabs and your thumb is facing down, this now becomes a transition into a new move. So what we're going to do is we're going to twist it up until our thumb is facing towards 12 o'clock, which is the top. Now we're going to do something called a figure eight. You may have seen this in the Chuck class, but we're going to do it with the staff, which looks like this. If you can already do this, then just practice going from the rotor, grabbing it with your thumb down, and twisting it into the figure eight from there. Rotor, figure eight. For those that need the breakdown, which I'm assuming quite a few people are going to need that, it's going to be as soon as the thumb grabs it, what you're doing is you're thinking about the thumb that's facing up, that's always pointed upwards. Whenever it's pointing upwards, which is 12 o'clock, it's going to move to the opposite side. Now, on this plane, we actually have, it's almost like we're on a set of train tracks. I'm going to turn to the side to show you what I mean. We're basically creating two circles, or two half circles, I should say. Every time it's at 12 o'clock, we're going to move to the other side. The circles that we're creating are kind of like if I had two imaginary paintbrushes and I was creating a circle like they were a train track, you can see that they're moving in this direction. So my hand is going to cross from this circle to the bottom of the other circle. It's going to go a half circle up and it's going to come back down. So you can see, like I have these two circles here. Every time it's at the top, it's going to cross down to 6 o'clock at the bottom. Just like the nunchucks, but slightly different because we're gripping from the center of the staff. So it may feel a little bit different. So here's how it looks. Once we reach 12 o'clock here, thumb is pointing up. We have to do 12 o'clock by where the thumb is facing. This is going to kind of twist downward. You got to make this pretty tight. It's going to feel a little bit awkward because your hand is almost going to be facing upside down like this. That's okay. That's exactly how it should feel. I know it's a little bit awkward, but that's the way how you can get a really nice tight spin. So if it feels a little too awkward, you can make it a little bit more diagonal to start, and repetition will slowly make the planes get a little bit tighter. So here, we grab it, thumbs facing down, get it up to 12 o'clock, and we slash down to the other side. Whoosh. Here. Now what we're going to do, you can imagine there's only one direction it can go. If we go this way, it gets stuck, right? So we're going to keep going the same direction in that circle until we reach up to the top of 12 o'clock again. Every time the thumb is facing up, we switch tracks. So it's at 12 o'clock, we're going to switch tracks and take it down to 6 o'clock on the other side. Boom! We're back to the original position that we just started. So 6 o'clock, which is the bottom. Yeah, it's interesting because we don't really have too many clocks around anymore, so I don't know if I should use 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock, if I should just say down and up. 12 o'clock at the top, thumb is facing up, switch tracks. We're going to swing it downwards like this. Make sure that it's nice and tight. If you have to, this is another reason why I say sometimes you can release with all your fingers. Because if you keep a grip with all your fingers like this, it's really hard on the wrists to be able to make that transition. But if I open up my hand like this, as long as I have a tight grip, it seamlessly has a little bit more stretch, because otherwise I'd have to get my pinky finger to wrap around that much, which can be really difficult. So this is why I say that when someone asks me about getting a really nice grip, staff has taught me to have a good grip, because generally speaking, if you can get to this, it gives you a lot of flexibility with what you can do with the staff. And we're going to twist it up to 12 o'clock. We're crossing the train tracks back to 6 here, up to 12, crossing train tracks, back and forth. And again, if you need to, you can open up your hand, your fingers like this, and just see if you can get it with these two fingers. There's a lot of ways you can do it. If you don't feel secure, you can also kind of wrap your thumb and your pointer finger together to make it so it can't fly out of your hands, because otherwise it's kind of open like this. I've reached a point where I don't generally do that, but I used to clamp down at least on these two to make sure that it doesn't fly. You can use all your fingers too. It's just you may have to adjust the angle a little bit more if you don't have the flexibility to come through. 12 o'clock slash down to 6. 12 o'clock slash down to 6. Right? And again, if we're doing it from here, what you're going to do is from the rotor, keep practicing the figure 8 if you're not able to do this. Once you grab and your left thumb is pointed downwards, pull it up to 12 o'clock, and then we switch tracks. But it's going to be kind of behind us. Kind of the same motion, except for this time we're trying to keep it tight with the planes, because I was telling you how this is going into the wheel plane. So when it's 12 o'clock, we're going to switch over here. You can even kind of turn a little bit. If I turn this completely, it would actually be the way that we trained it. But if I stood still, what you'll see is we can go into the wheel plane, kind of the front and back plane technically, but you can basically go into these two train tracks by however you want to call this title. You know, I'm going to be honest, like when it comes to terminology, I'm like horrible at it. The way I've always learned is kinesthetic, meaning I have to feel it to understand it. So with the Flow Arts group especially, they're really, really good with terminology, and I'm really, really bad. It's not that I don't know it, I just don't know it. If that makes sense. All right. I know nunchucks though. I can give you all the terms of nunchucks, but a lot of this has just been exploration and yeah, so I won't always have the names right. You'll have to excuse me. I don't know if this is going to be, if that's considered the wheel plane, even if my body's facing this way, or if we're actually rotating between the front and back plane. But this is the effect that we're looking for. If it's too hard, turn into it. It gets a lot easier. You don't have to turn so, you don't have to make such an intense twist. So to start with, you might have to turn sideways to really get it, but eventually you're going to want to have your body facing forward for a good reason, so you can do the other transitions as well without losing your motion. This is going to be the end result of what we're trying to work with here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and back. But yeah, that's what I'm teaching you. But in the beginning especially, just get enough to get it down. As you do your twist, if you need to turn into it, that's totally fine. Just try to keep in the same pace. Like what I'm trying to say is don't go from here and then do the figure 8 in front of you. Do it from here and then turn to the side and do that figure 8 if you have to. So go ahead and practice that. I'm going to go ahead and try to look at the read what people are saying. Give me just a second here. Again, you have to excuse me. Like sometimes I'm like a laser and I can focus really good, and then sometimes I'm just scattered. It's one of those times where I'm on live stream and all of my thoughts are leaving me, so I'm like grabbing for I'm grabbing for anything I can. But I mean, if you need assistance though, just make sure that you ask questions because I may not be as clear today. I've already given you all the warnings, so I won't need to repeat myself again on that one. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and look here. Hostel Graveyard says he studies both. Good. Oh, that's great. So Hostel could probably teach me some things about baton twirling. That's awesome. Did you get that from a Chuck's move? Ike Flow, the Bruce Lee, not really. Or the brick or the string, none of those are from Chuck's. However, the rotor and the figure 8 definitely come from the Chuck's. I mean, you know, those are just core foundations, I feel like, for all props. There's always going to be some sort of rotor or figure 8 to some degree that affect that motion for sure. Any tips on jumping while doing flashy spins or strikes, tornado type jumps and whatnot? That wouldn't necessarily be under the beginning style, but a lot of times when people do jump flashy kicks and stuff, if you look really closely, they're actually holding the staff still because as they're jumping and turning, the staff is spinning with that. Sometimes it'll even be like a very slow transition, but there's usually a very little motion as they're doing their jump spins. I had a couple of jump spins that I used to do in my earlier 30s, but I just haven't been able to do it. And recently I used to do a one-handed cartwheel and throw the staff behind my back. That was pretty cool. But a lot of it has to do with stabilizing yourself as you're doing it so that way you have control of the staff. I'm trying to think of any tricks off the top of my head. Let's focus on that one next week. I think we should talk about that one less in a beginner class because I feel like it's doable. It's a little bit more of a challenge. And Michael Antonio says, thanks for the Dark Monk reference. I ordered Chucks today. Congrats! Vladimir says, Ken, I'm a beginner. What kind of nunchucks do you recommend? Well, Dark Monks for Chucks. We're on staff today, but Chucks, I would recommend Dark Monk. They're the best training Chucks. If you don't have those, then try to get yourself either a nice pair of foamies, or if you have Oaks, go ahead and go with hex pads or something to protect your elbows. Hostile Grave, if you manage to impart wisdom on this dude, I'm most worthy. Oh, A5, I'm sorry. Oh, man. You know, the whole thing about me is like I'm always in a constant state of learning, so I'm sure you could. I feel like everyone has something that we can learn. Some people teach us what to do, some people teach us what not to do, but there's always a lesson. All right, let's get back. So we've got two parts of the box, and the box is the rotor and the figure 8, right? Now what we're going to do is we're going to try to go to the third part of the box. The third part is a little bit challenging, and it feels a little crazy because we have to learn how to pass the staff behind us two different places. Not only is the challenge passing it behind our back, but if it's a move that you've never done before, your odds of being in the wrong plane are very, very high. So first I'm gonna start off and show you how to access this, and then we'll go over some of the most common trouble places that people have when doing this. This is called a pinwheel. See, my brain is just totally missing all of the terminology today. If I could just today's one of those days where I just want to teach without talking. All right, so we're in the rotor. And then remember, as soon as the left hand grabs it and it twists up to the top, we're now in the figure eight to the side, right? Boom. And as you can see, my thumb is always leading the figure eight. Now, as we go to the train tracks behind us, boom, so as soon as it goes from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock behind us, we're going to get started with the next part. So we're going to start rolling it up. It's going up to 12 o'clock, and get ready to pass it behind your back from here. Here's how it works. You're basically, I'm going to do it from this side so you can see. As soon as we get to the train tracks, get ready because we're going to pull it into a behind the back pass. It's going to roll up to 12 o'clock like this, and we're going to keep going the same direction. We're not going to cross back over. We're not going from 12 o'clock crossing back over. We're just going to keep it going, but we don't have much space to do this. So basically, we're going to go until the thumb points the opposite direction, right here. So again, we're here, we're doing the back and forth, right? 12 o'clock, it goes back to 6. Get ready for the twist. It's going up to 12 up here, but we're not crossing back over. It continues to go downwards until the thumb faces this direction, the opposite way. From there, we do the same type of grab with the other hand. So our thumbs are actually facing against each other. If they were to stick out and point, they would make an X. They're going opposite direction. So here, reaches down this direction, and then the other hand grabs. Great. I just want to make sure I was in the camera. From there, we let go, and we're going to continue this motion. We're going to continue going down. Now, what you really want to think about is downward and upwards, never across. Your body's natural tendency when doing things behind the back is to want to cross because it doesn't really know this space very well. But a lot of this is in your shoulders. It's a lot in your shoulders. So when you're passing behind your back, for instance, if you can tuck your shoulders back just a little bit, it may give you a little bit more room than if you were relaxed. Now, I've done it enough to where I don't need to tuck my shoulders back, but this might help to think, like, if you can just pull your hands back a little bit more, tuck your shoulders back like this, it will help you kind of feel the spacing that you need. It should never hit your legs. If you hit your legs, you're going more horizontal. It should always just clear nice and easy. One nice thing about this is the wall training for this one is really, really good for you. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to keep unraveling it until it's nice and straight. We're going to lift our arm up. I'm going to start back, and we're just going to get to that point again. So from the figure eight, or 12 o'clock, we reach down to 6. Now we got to get ready for this new move. As it comes up to 12, we don't cross over. We just keep going down until the thumb is facing the opposite direction behind us. Now my other hand is going to reach back, and it's going, perpendicular to where my other grip was. My thumbs are facing against each other. I let go, and then I push down with my thumb. Basically, I want to make sure this is still going down and not sideways, or I'll hit my leg. That's a great way to tell if your planes are a little off. You're going to push down until it straightens out. So you're going to push down, and then you're going to roll it until it straightens out. And then all you're going to do is, you could imagine, this part's fun because it's almost like you're just stretching. Like when you wake up in the morning and just do this nice stretch, that's what you're trying to do with this. So basically, once you're straight, once your arm is straight, you're just going to lift up both hands like this. And I usually go until my thumb faces outward behind me. I'll go over here to show you. I'm going to stick my thumb out so you can see. I'm just stretching until my thumb is kind of facing out this direction. And I grab opposite again. The way that I'm grabbing is like this. Now, there's a lot of ways that you can do a pinwheel just as well. Like, you don't have to do this exactly, as long as you can do those passes below and above. I've seen quite a few variations of how this pass should go, but this is the way that I do it. So I swing it around like this. If you feel you don't have much room back here, a lot of times you can kind of push your shoulders back. And again, it's this really nice stretch. It's almost like you're trying to reach for something that's behind your head, not on your head, but behind it, like you're trying to grab a ball that's right behind your head. It's going to be kind of the same feeling. It's like you're trying to grab this ball that's behind your head, and then you reach over and you grab it again. This hand lets go. And remember how I say everything's an up and down motion. You're using your pinky finger to pull this up. If it hits your shoulder, you're pulling wrong. So make sure that you're pulling it up with your pinky finger. You can even use your hand to guide it. I can use my right hand and think, okay, this needs to keep going, so we're going to guide it up and down. From here, it's just like where we just were when we moved to the figure eight. This is the reset point. This is back to the beginning. So we're going to roll this down until the thumb faces this direction. I'm going to grab, remember opposing, both thumbs are facing against each other. Stretch out until my thumb is facing the opposite direction over there, and I do the same exact mirrored grip on the other side. And then it slowly becomes down to up, down to up. And eventually it becomes a faster motion where you'll just get used to, you'll get used to the passes, but that's kind of the basic start of it. So go ahead and practice that. The pinwheel can be very challenging. Oh yeah, I've said that I would mention like some of the pitfalls. One of the biggest pitfalls is planes are really hard to get, especially when you first start with this move. The best thing that I can say, and it can be kind of frustrating, but I say like a lot of times it can take people up to an hour to get the pinwheel if they're struggling with planes. One of the best ways to do it is to have a wall and to stand about 2 feet away from the wall and to do your pinwheel and to not hit the wall. Once you can do that, take a step closer and see if you can do it. If I hit the wall here, look at it, see what adjustments need to be made, and do it again. What you should be able to do is you should be able to do the pinwheel, say 3 times in a row without touching the wall, and then you take a step even closer to the wall. Keep doing that until you can get really close to the wall. You have great planes. The wall will be your teacher. The moment you touch that wall, you just make your adjustment until it's not touching the wall. Keep it locked in memory, and then see if you can do 3 pinwheels with that adjustment. If you can't, just keep making those adjustments until you can. So eventually you should be able to get really close. And what you'll find is it's very tight, and you're going really wide, and a lot of it just has to do with how you tuck your shoulders behind you. Those are usually the biggest parts, the biggest stumbling blocks, and the wall is going to be your greatest teacher to overcoming that. Let me go ahead and check. All right. Boom. Let's see here. Dropkick corpse. Thumbs up. Hostile graveyard. Teach seafood. Teach seafood here. Got bragging rights. Man, I don't think I've actually seen one of your videos, but if you ever want to send me a clip of what you do, ken.flowtricks@gmail.com, send it my way. I would love to see it. Good. Does anyone have any questions at all about the pinwheel right now? If you do, just send me a holler. All right, I'm going to go back to the stream here. I know what I'm teaching can seem a bit complicated, and that's just how I feel like. I feel like if you can get these 4 moves down well, my biggest style builds off of these 4 moves. So to me, this is the core foundation, which is the rotor, which we just worked on, the figure eight to the side, the pinwheel, and the last part, which is the hardest one, I think, is the reverse figure eight, back to the rotor. The reason why I think the reverse figure eight is the most tricky of all of these is because all the rest of them usually lead with the thumb, but the reverse figure eight leads with your pinky finger. So your pinky finger has to lead. And most people are not used to doing that. Most people, even when you hold a sword, most people are used to holding a sword this way. But if you got used to holding a sword this way, you would understand the power of your pinky finger a little bit better. Well, we have to do the same thing similarly. If you can think that everything's kind of a mirror. So if I'm doing a regular figure eight this way, in order for me to do it on this side, I have to do a reverse figure eight to keep it in flow. It may look the same, but the technique is the exact opposite. So let's go ahead and show you how that looks. So we're doing the pinwheel right now. We'll do it from the pinwheel. That way you can figure out a way to get through it. We're going to do it from the pinwheel, and the moment that my hand reaches over and grabs and passes it to my right hand is where we are going to get this started. And here's how it starts. We're going to basically get until the point where we can get our thumb outward like this. Usually we would stretch up to do that pinwheel, but we're not going to stretch up on this one. We're just going to get this ready to go. So we're here, and do you remember what I said? Every time you're at 12 o'clock, you switch train tracks down to 6 o'clock, right? It's going to be the same thing, except 12 o'clock here is with the pinky finger. The pinky finger, which also means, now if you do that two-hand grip, you have to still imagine the pinky finger is leading the whole way. So I'm not doing the figure eight from here. I'm doing the figure eight from here. Once my pinky finger reaches up to 12 o'clock, we're swooping it down to 6 o'clock on this side. And then we're going to move it up to 12 o'clock here. It's going to feel really awkward, and that's good. If you have problems with this move, the hallway is a great place to train this. So again, got the pinwheel, we move it over to this way, we pull it up like we're about to stretch, but we're not quite going there. The moment we get to 12 o'clock now, we're thinking about closing the gap. My hand and my elbow are kind of almost going to twist like that. So basically you're thinking like, it's almost like you're twisting someone's wrist if you've ever had to do that, where you're about to throw an elbow on someone's head, which I'm sure everyone has had to do at one point, just, no, I will not give you my lunch money. So we're at 12 o'clock, we twist it down to 6 o'clock this way, and it's going to be the exact same thing. Once we get it to 12 o'clock in the front, remember we're on the train track, so if I was standing here, I have a train track this way, and then I have a train track this way. We're trying to go between these two tracks. So once we get to 12 o'clock here, the train track moves over to here. There's 6 o'clock, moves up to 12 o'clock, and then what we're going to do is this is going to move down to 6 o'clock, so it's going to swing back down to 6 o'clock on this side. 12 o'clock, pinky finger's going up, half moon down. I'm going to stand this way so you can see it now. So it's in front, goes behind me by my head, spins a half circle, 6 o'clock to the back, and goes in front of me in front of my head. So there's a half circle, swings up to the top, half circle, swings up to the top. Whoosh. Crazy, I know. I feel like this one is a challenging motion with the reverse. With the reverse figure eight, tends to be a little bit more challenging. The reason why I say to practice in a hallway is because you have two walls on each end. Most of the time, people are not used to using their pinky finger to guide the staff. Just thinking here. You know, my apologies. You know, when I actually think about it, it's easier to go from 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock with the reverse. I totally botched that up. I'm going to explain this again. My apologies if you're struggling. It's because this one requires a 6 to 12 and not a 12 to 6. What I mean to say by that is basically once my pinky finger's at 6 o'clock down here, I'm imagining I'm pulling it up to 12 o'clock here. 6 o'clock pulls up to 12 o'clock. That's a ton easier visualization than the other one, which could cause you to stretch a little bit harder. So if we're going from the pinwheel, we're going to try this again just because I messed that one up. My apologies. Again, I already told you all I'm having one of those days. We're going to grab it and we're going to go to 6 o'clock here. We're going to pull it up towards 12 o'clock in the front. This is a lot easier, less stress on the body too. Get it to 6 o'clock here and move it up to 12 o'clock. What I told you before was getting it to 12 o'clock and twisting it downward. You can still get away with that. It's not like you can't. It's just a little bit more stretch in terms of how you visualize how those patterns would go, and this is a little bit more simple. And this way, it's almost like I'm twisting it kind of by the shoulder, pulling it down, twisting it behind the shoulder, pulling it down, twisting it in front of the shoulder, pulling it down, and then in the end, it should be able to twist back and forth. This is not a move that is easy for people to get right away, usually, especially when you explain it wrong the first time. So if you have any questions, give me a holler. I'm gonna go take a look, make sure everything's working out for everyone here. All right. Here we go. Let's see. Do I do 3-section staff? I've tried 3-section staff. I actually haven't worked enough to get any good moves in. I'm trying to think. There was someone that was fantastic at the 3-section staff, but unfortunately I forgot their name. Let's see. Muay Thai. Nice. I haven't really done much Muay Thai. I did meet this really great Muay Thai kickboxer once though, and he took me through one training class, and my shins were screaming at me. Those guys are insane. In a great way. Please don't kick me. Okay. So we got through the hardest parts, I feel like. This is the part that I really want to stress because Now, when we're doing the reverse figure eight, as soon as the thumb faces towards as soon as the thumb faces towards 12 o'clock, we can go straight into the rotors. We're kind of pulling, as soon as the thumb hits 12 o'clock, we can pull it back to center. Thumb faces down, we grab it. Palm faces up, we grab it. I'm going to go through all of them. Thumb faces down, we grab it. Palm faces up, we grab it. Now we're going to exchange it. Thumb faces down, we grab it. We twist it up to 12 o'clock, and now we're going to move it over into the figure eights. We're going to cross the train track behind, 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock. Change tracks, 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock, change tracks, 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock. And now we have this. Now we're going to change it again. We're going to go, once again, we're going to be kind of like we're in that stretch mode. This is usually a good transition right here. We're going to pull it down until the thumb faces this way. We're going to grab it, cross grab, let go. Reach behind like we're doing a big stretch until the thumb is facing out the exact opposite direction of where it was from below, and we're going to grab in a mirror fashion. Really stretch back those shoulders, let go back down, thumb faces this way, grab it, thumb faces this way, grab it, and back and forth, and back and forth. And the next thing you're going to do, as soon as you grab it here, you're reaching over for that stretch, but this time we're going to let the pinky finger go to 6 o'clock, pull it up to 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock. We're changing the tracks every time from 6 to 12. We're changing the track between the front to the back. And we have the reverse figure eight. And then from there, as we move to the front, we're going to twist it all the way until our thumb's facing down, and we're back to the rotor. Now let's go in reverse. So now you can go this way. Actually, let's see if you can just get this part. Because if you can get this part, you should be able to do, maybe not this fast, but we can go from rotor to figure eight to pinwheel to reverse figure eight, back to rotor. That's all the moves. Those are the 4 moves that I taught you, and it goes through all parts of your body, basically, like all the planes that are not horizontal. Here, to figure eight, to behind back, to the side, back to the front, boom. And if you do it enough times, you can also start thinking about how you can kind of bridge the gaps. So you don't have to go from rotor into the figure eight, into the pinwheel. You can go from rotor straight into pinwheel by just doing just a slight figure eight. So if we go from the rotor and I grab it, I can just do a figure eight just enough so it starts the figure eight just enough to pull it backwards, but then I don't go into the figure eight because normally I just go into this direction. We pull it backwards to start the figure eight, but then we just twist it down and we keep going and we go straight into the rotor from here. This is a transitory move. So when you're doing the rotor, think, I'm going to do a figure eight just for like a split second. Figure eight for a split second, and then go straight into the rotor instead. Or pinwheel. And it'll be the same thing. If you do the reverse figure eight just for a second, I'm going to do it just for a second, you can pull it straight back into the rotor. And now we've kind of skipped the figure eight and the figure eight and the reverse figure eight, and we're able to go from front to back fairly quickly. No one will even notice. Yep. So that's a transition. The transitions are really important because if you realize that you don't have to do the moves to transition to the other ones, then you have more flexibility and control as to where the staff is going. I'll also show you that if you're doing the figure eight, it's kind of the same thing. You can go from figure eight to reverse figure eight by just incorporating very small amount of pinwheel and rotor, just enough to get you there. So if we're doing the figure eight and we need to get over to this hand, we can start doing the pinwheel, but we only need to pass it once. And then the moment our hand comes up, we go straight into the other side, into the reverse. So we're here. Think, I'm going to do the pinwheel just enough to pass it, but then I'm going to pull it over into the figure eight instead of reaching over and continually doing the pinwheel. So here, pass it once, reach it over into the reverse. And here's the cool thing. You can go backwards. Now we're going to teach the reversed addition, so that way you can go backwards and forwards. Because if you're going here, well, how do you get to this hand? There's 2 ways to get back into this hand. One is to go forward. You can do part of the rotor, just the pass, and take it back. Or you can do the other half of the pinwheel. We didn't go over the head, but you can use this over the head pass, the second part of the pinwheel, to take it back into the figure eight. So the cool thing is, once you understand this, you realize you have two directions that you can always move this staff just between those 4 moves. So we've been going counterclockwise, meaning I'm going from the rotor this direction and then behind me and this way. We can also go this way, the exact opposite. So I'll show you how this works. If you ever have questions about this, the nice thing is also you can either imagine it, or it's one of those things that you can try to feel and see if you can just feel it out. If you can do all the moves, comfortably, you should be able to find the transition point automatically, but if you can't, here's where it is. So as our palms are facing upward, and I let go and I grab with my right hand, the moment it's 6 o'clock, I move into the train track behind me, and then we're back into the figure 8. So from the rotor, if I grab it with my right hand instead of my left, I get it down to 6 o'clock, and then I can go and then I cross upwards to 12 o'clock into the train tracks, and I'm here. So now I have the option. We already went over pulling it to the left here, but now I can also do it if I reach with my other hand, pull it over to the right. And since we already just practiced the over the head pass for the pinwheel too, then we can skip the rotor completely by just doing half the pinwheel to the other hand. So we're going to go over here, we're doing the figure 8, we're doing half the pinwheel, switching it over to the right side. And we'll do the other half over the head to get it back. I'll go nice and slow. Whoosh, there's the part of the pinwheel, but we're exiting out and going into the reverse. Then we're going to finish that pinwheel and pull it back to the right. And to me, that looks a little more interesting than just doing the basics like this, where we're just doing the full technique. You can do it this way, but it can start getting old. Well, not old, if you can just imagine, if you can start realizing that you can break apart these techniques and only do half of the technique as a transition point, you'll realize there's a lot of things that open up from there. Sky's the limit, it really is. So here, if we're going the opposite way now, you should be able to go into the reverse, into half a pinwheel, back to here, back to the front. So your goal for this next part, and then we'll continue forward, is to find your own little combos to transition back and forth. Here, let me give you one actually. How about you transition between the figure 8 to the reverse figure 8 without any rotors? In other words, no rotors, no going in front of you. You're going to do the figure 8, and I just want to see you transition from figure 8 into the reverse figure 8, and then pull it over your head back to the figure 8. Pull it under the body, reverse, pull it over the head. Just see if you can transition between that. All right, while you do that, I'm going to see if there's any questions. All right. Here we go. Let's see. Vladimir, Ken, where did you get your staff from? Oh, this staff the staff is actually Flow Toys. Flow Toys is amazing. Whenever I'm doing glow stuff, it's probably Flow Toys. I do have a Pixel nunchuck from Ignis as well. Generally speaking, I train with Flow Toys for most of the time when I'm doing LEDs because they're super durable, super bright. I love them. Let's see. Sergio, Ken, I'm joining the Kumite soon. Thanks for the moves. Awesome. Congrats. IKFlow asked if you can do a pinwheel and anti-spin. I've tried. I've never been successful at it. It's a very awkward motion, that's for sure. If you can figure it out, let me know. I haven't been able to pull it off to a point where I felt very safe in flow. I felt like it's really fumbly. It's a good question, though. I haven't really, now that I have a little more techniques, I might be able to pull it off. I haven't tried yet. Let's see. No problem. They have a quick turnaround once you order. Yes, it's 4 feet. Yep. And again, the reason why I do 4 feet is because I do a lot of techniques by the hips, which is actually what we'll cover next. Okay, everything looks good so far. I'm going to go back here. I just want to thank you guys again. I feel like staff is a little bit trickier to start with, especially the way that I'm teaching it. But this is also, in my opinion, this is the way to open up the most moves and mobility for the future, is by getting those moves. Getting those 4 boxed moves is what I call them. I feel like is essential for having this nice steady flow. We haven't even gotten into footwork yet. Once we get into footwork, everything kind of opens up even more so. The reason why I use a 4-foot staff is for moves like that. For instance, when I do this move here, you won't be able to do that with the long staff because I'm hitting the waist to the shoulder. The shoulder would work. The moment we hit the waist, the staff would hit the ground. So I generally go for a staff that's barely long enough so it doesn't hit the ground when I do waist motions. That's why I use a 4-foot staff. Everyone's gonna have different ones, but for flow, I feel like this is the best for me. And then I also can do double staffs, 2 staffs, which are usually longer. Like most flow people, I think, are like 2.5 feet. So having a 4-foot double staff is usually longer, but you can still get away with a lot of the neat little tricks the double staff people do. You can still get away with a lot of the neat tricks. You just can't get it like the inside the elbow kinds of moves. So there you go with that. Okay, here we go. So the next part I want to teach is one beats. And one beats is going to be another one of those things where it's like learning it can be, I don't want to say it's a bore, it's a little bit of a grind. But once you learn one beats, everything changes. So what I want you to do is imagine you have 4 points on your body that you want to focus on. Shoulder, shoulder, hip, hip. The secret to a lot of the tricks that I do is I've learned how to make one beats from these different positions while doing the pinwheel, the rotor, the figure eight, the reverse figure eight as transitory points to get to there. Once you get into this and you can connect all the dots, you'll see all of these flow together beautifully, beautifully. So let's go ahead and get started. So you know the figure eight is a 2-beat. The figure eight is a 2-beat because if I was to hold out my hand, 1, 2 before it resets. 1, 2. So it basically, both points go through before it starts over, meaning 2 points are hit. One beat makes a full circle. The moment it makes a full circle, it's just 1 hit. So in other words, this is the focus right here, just creating a circle. The one beat feels really awkward to do, but in the end, it will help you immensely to be able to do this motion. This is also the basis of a lot of footwork. So there's a lot of varieties. The first one I'm going to teach you with your left or right hand, because you're going to want to do both. What I want you to do is hold the staff at your hip very straight. I want you to imagine that this tip is a paintbrush, and what you want to do is trace a circle with this paintbrush. So try to trace a circle as close to your body as you can. Matter of fact, if you're by a wall, this is another one of those wall trainings where you can stand in front of the wall like that. If you stood in front of a wall, the closer you get, the higher you'll have to move your hand, and the lower it'll have to dip to not hit the wall. And that's what you want. Most of your control is going to be with these 2 fingers because it's going to be such an extreme twist that if you have all your fingers, again, when all your fingers are locked into the staff, it's really hard to gain control. So we're reaching over here, and we're trying to get high to low to high to low. We're trying to draw a circle like this. This is a 1 beat. And what I'd like you to do is go ahead and do this 1 beat. We're doing it with the left hand right now, and we are going, let's see, counterclockwise. How do you get into the 1 beat? It's really simple. If you look, it's going the same direction as our figure eight. So all I have to do is pull this away from the hip, and it becomes a figure eight. 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So we're doing the figure eight. We can just pull our hand down into the hip to go into the 1 beat. And then back out. Back down. It's going to feel really interesting. There's going to be a big rolling motion, and again, most of it is between these 2 fingers to get this grip right. Once you go this direction, you're eventually going to want to go both directions. It'll give you complete control and allow you to do footwork and moves. But for now, we're just going to go to the next part of it. What we're going to do now, this is when it's going to get a little bit fun, is we're going to get this till it crosses our body to the right like this. I'm actually going to turn to the right for a second, just so you can get the feel a little bit better. And then I'm going to take my thumb and I'm going to point it all the way up to my shoulder like this. And then I'm going to turn back. So if I'm here, again, I'm going to turn to the side, pull up the staff by my shoulder, and I'm going to turn back here. Now we're going to go pinky side up here, and we're going to try to do the same circle. This is going to be a lot harder, especially if you're not used to it. You're going to do the same circle with this one. So we're going to try to get it as far up high as possible. Even if you have to bend a little bit, that's okay. And as low as you can. High and low. High and low. High and low. Remember, if you don't go too high or low, it's going to kind of look like this. Like if you're not really controlling it very good, it's not going to be what you really want to focus on is getting it as low as you can and getting it as high as you can, and that will create a very full circle. See if you can get that. I'll show you what the final move is while you're working on that. The final move of this is this. But we're going to get to that point. It's actually just a one beat here, connecting them together with this motion. So we got the one beat, crosses the body here, kind of twist just for a second, pull it up to the shoulder, twist back here, and then try to make a big circle as you can. The last part to this motion is once it's to the opposite side, so now it's this side of the body instead of, this one was this side of the body, we pulled it up. Now it's going to be this side of the body, I'm going to twist to the left, and I'm going to pull it back down to my hip. And then we're going to go back to the original one beat here. In very, very slow motion, it'll look like from here, out, up, to here. Once it's out here, pull it down to the hip. You notice there's that little rotation that happens there, and we're back to here. The nice thing is, right now it just looks a little wonky, but if you're able to go faster, you'll notice that what's going to happen is you're going to pull it up to the shoulder, twist it a half circle, twist it down to the hip. Half circle up to the shoulder, down to the hip. Eventually you won't have to do the twist and it'll look like this. And then if you keep a very loose grip with your hands, again with these two fingers, then you can add a little bit of speed to create this motion. And if we slow it down, half circle, down, half circle, up, half circle, down. And then you can eventually have even more speed. And you got the combos that you see me, that I love to do. So one beats are awesome now, right? But to start it off again, I'll do it one more time. To start it off again, cross the body, twist to the side, pull it up to the shoulder, stand here, get this motion down. Really feel, this one's really awkward, so feel this one out. Stand in front of a wall if you have to, make sure you go nice up and down. And then once we get to the outside here, we twist to the side, pull it down to the hip, and go back. Let me know if you have questions. I'm going to take a quick little breather for a second here, and then I'll be back to answer some questions. Camera here. Let me see. Do we have any questions? So effortless, second nature. You know, to make something look like second nature, you just do it a lot. And that's really the big trick. So the trick is first you learn the techniques, right? You learn the technique that you need to do to make it work. And then you learn to relax enough to where it feels effortless. When you can get it effortless enough to where you can relax, then you can make it fast by adding just a little bit of tension. It all goes in phases. I feel like a lot of times people learn the technique, but then they stop. They don't keep training it, which means they're able to accomplish it, but it just looks like they're doing a very technical move instead of something fluid. Because once you learn the move, that's just the beginning, in my opinion. Like, once you can nail it 100% of the time, then wow, that's really loud. Once you can do the move, hold on, there we go. Once you can do the move, then it's about being relaxed enough so you can really make it agile and flexible, but then adding just enough tension to where you can have speed. It's all a fine balance, and everything's about honing in on the sensitivity part, and then all of a sudden it looks effortless, and it actually feels effortless because with just about everything you do, including the steer wheel or including flow, if you can find the perfect balance between everything that you do, it usually requires the least amount of effort. And most people that spin or do anything, when they first start, they put in way too much effort. They're usually a lot more tired. They're usually a lot more sore because they're using too much muscle or they're using too much. And it's really about fine-tuning it. And that's repetition. You got to keep doing it until you can just keep making it more sensitive until you get that fine point where everything's nice and relaxed. That's the trick. Dude, I love doing tricks. Awesome. Hostile Graveyard. Not to mention Solitude. Truly indispensable. Awesome. Yeah, no, I feel that. That's why I want to do more live streams, because I feel like, I don't know, this is the time to learn and become like Batman. So that way, when everything opens up again, you'll be ready to perform and you can get some gigs. And I mean, that's what I did before this. I took my skills and became a performer, and it supported me full time up until the point where Corona came. So, IKeyFlow asked, what's the first prop I started with? The answer is nunchucks. I started with nunchucks, then I went to staff, then I went to poi, and then double staff, and then sword, and then double swords, and then double chucks, and then Bugang. I made up my own H-staff after that. I think those are all of them. Those are the main ones. Let me see maximum effort. Show us what we have to work towards. Haha, says Subtle Focus. I just did. I did not too long ago, like before the show started, and then I was out of breath. But I can show you. All right, I'll give you a quick little demo here. First, I'll give you a demo of the moves you can already do. You can do this. You can do this. You can do the pinwheel. You can do the reverse. You can go to the front, right? And you can, oops, and I was talking and moving. And if you do this enough, you can use the transition in between to be able to not just do the full technique, but break it into partial techniques. Man. Eventually we'll get that, but you can break it into partial techniques over here too. So we don't have to do the full pinwheel in order to get to the reverse figure eight. And then we just worked on this motion here, where we're going with one beats to one beats up here, going back and forth until it's becoming an extension. I have this thing where I have to be really careful because my light is literally right here. So if I extend my arm, I'm going to shatter a light bulb. Probably, I don't have another place to teach, but I'm very cautious of it. Very cautious of that light. A quick little demo would look something like. There we go. Okay, so let's go back to one beats for a second here. What we have right now is we have the one beat by the hip. It pulls up to the shoulder, and then you should be able to go between these two. And if you remember right, if you can do this part here, remember you can just basically pull your arm out, and it becomes a figure eight. This is really nice to know because that means you can basically use these techniques to transition in between them. Anytime that you do a figure eight here, you can pull it into here and go into this motion instead, which, I don't know, is it like a figure eight in one beats? Quadrant work? So now when we do the rotor, we don't even have to go straight to the figure eight. We can instead pull it tight into the body and go into this motion too, just as easily as we could just extend our arm out to do a regular figure eight. So now on the left side, you have two options. You now have two options. Pull it in towards the body or keep it out and do the regular figure eight. Pull it in towards the body or keep it out. And it's the same thing. Even as we keep it towards the body, the moment it goes behind, we can go back into the pinwheel because it's basically the same motion as the figure eight with a couple of modifications. Now we want to get the reverse as well, so let's go ahead and do that. The reverse will be kind of similar. We're going to hold it with our right hand. We're going to do the same thing. When it's out here, you're going to want to make a big circle by your hip, like this. I'm going to make sure that your circle is as high and as low as you possibly can. That way you get a nice clean circle. When you first start, it may look a little wonky and a little wobbly, and it's really important, even if you have to go nice and slow, that you have a really established circle that's happening by your hip. This is the same thing. The moment it points to the outside, you're going to turn this direction and lift it up towards your shoulder. This is usually the hard one again because we're pinky finger leading, but then you're going to try to create a circle on this side as well. If you need more help, remember, face the wall, get close to the wall, and really bring it as high and as low as you can. Sometimes you may hit your face. You shouldn't be going that fast to where it would hurt, but in that case, you may even, if you watch this side, my hand can even move forward and backwards to try to avoid my head. So when I'm here, my hand is moving forward and backwards ever so slightly if I need to avoid my head, and eventually it just becomes this seamless motion. But the truth is we don't even stay very long in this position. All we're doing is usually trying to make a half moon over here. Once it's pointing across the body, I twist and I pull it back to my hip. And then we're back down here. I'm not going to go as in depth as the other one, but it's the same thing. We go out, pull it up, do a half moon, pull it down. Half moon, pull it up, half moon, pull it down. It's kind of the same concept as the other one, but it's backwards. And then eventually you should be able to get this motion. Oops. It's a little bit different, but kind of the same thing. So you have the reverse figure eight, and it's the same concept. Now we can take the reverse figure eight and also pull it into the body. Which means what? Which means anything that the reverse figure eight could do, you can also now do in this 2-beat, I want to call it a quadrant, but it's actually a 1-beat thing. Okay, so practice that. While you're practicing that, I'm going to show you a concept, which is basically now we can get rid of reverse figure eights and figure eights and go from a rotor into the 1-beat variations, into the pinwheel, into the 1-beats up here, and back to the front. Right? Work on that, and then we're going to go to the next phase. I'm going to come back here. I know, it's a little bit tricky. This move's a little bit tricky. But I feel like if you can grind this, oh my gosh, you're going to have so much fun. Like, you just got to be able to grind this part. If you can do everything in my basics class that I'm teaching you, you can... Everything that builds from that is where it gets really fun. I'm showing you all the hard stuff first because I feel like that's what's got to be learned in order to understand the concepts of being able to run and jump and move and do all kinds of crazy motions. All right, let me see. I want to see if there's any questions. Let's see it. Oh, yee, that's cool. Jock kick course. Can you show a good vertical to horizontal transitions and vice versa? Usually with chucks, I'd bounce planes. I find myself stuck on single staff phase. Maybe I need to use my body more. Sure, yeah, I can show a vertical transition. I'm gonna go back here. You're looking for a vertical to horizontal transition. A lot of times, like if I do the palm spin, for instance, a lot of times it's kind of like it's whenever my hand goes by my hip is usually a good time for me, because what I'll do is as it goes by my hip, I almost like tuck my hand in by the hip, which allows me to change it from there. So if I'm moving it, my hand reaches by my hip. It's usually when like my thumb is facing outwards that I make the stop and allows me to do other motions off of that. Like I said, I haven't really gone too deep into like all the horizontal movements yet, but that's usually, anytime that you do quadrant work or whatever, you can always stop it like right where you have a good grip to be able to make that maneuver. You don't really have bounces so much, but what you do have is passes. And whenever you do a pass, your hands can stop. So even if you're doing a pass here, there's a stop that you can make happen. Or if you really want to, you can even do a little push. So if you're doing a motion, like you're doing a rotor, for instance, and your hand is very straight, you can kind of push it to deflect it. It's almost like a redirection that you would use with nunchucks. Kind of crazy, kind of cool. Of course, you can also just like do a downward swing. So you're doing your motions here, then you're going to break plane because you're in the shoulder. You can swing it down diagonally to cross your body, which stops it. Anytime you make a stop, you can also go into the horizontal. I'm sure there's more options, but I feel like that's a good one. Or you can even just go really fast or whatever you're doing your motions, and then you just hold it there for a second. From that hold, do you see how I just kind of like, I held it and I pulled it across. There's a lot of ways you can go into it. Depends on how you want to present it. Okay. Last part to the staff basics, then I'm going to get Seth out here, and I think he wants to demonstrate a technique for y'all too. I know this is a little tricky. It's a lot trickier than nunchucks, in my opinion, to start with. But once you get past this, it's really exciting. It's really exciting what you can do. The last part that I want to show you is you have these 1-beat quadrants that you can do from here to here. You also should be able to branch it from here to here. So we can kind of go to the other side. We already worked on this one here. We already worked on this one here. Hey Seth, I'm going to get you in like 5 minutes. So it's really simple making the transition between this, where you can completely omit the rotor and the pinwheel and go straight into just these alone. And the basic concept is the moment that it's spinning in front of me right here, I grab it in front with the same cross grip as the pinwheel. The cool thing is this is kind of a substitute for a pinwheel, and I'll explain that in a second. You let go, you go from this quadrant here to this quadrant here, and it's going to be the same thing. We're going to pull it over in front of us, and our thumb's going to be facing outward, and we grab it with the other hand in the same way. When we let it go, the pinky finger leads over, and we're back to here. So it's going to look like this, boom. Remember, it's just like the pinwheel, but it's in front of us now. Here, boom, cross outward. And the cool thing is when you learn this motion, well, you'll have this first. You'll have a spin that looks like this, but essentially it opens up a front pinwheel, kind of. Like, it's not really called a pinwheel, a front pinwheel, but it allows you to replace the pinwheel with this move by doing figure eights, which is weird because you're actually over here. You're basically blending them to the point where it's close around your body, and you can do this motion. Now, you can go around the hips, which can be a big bit of a strain when you're trying to go fast, or you can take it underneath your armpit like this. It's the same as being by your hip, except for you're just going for speed here. What am I doing here? It's exactly what I said. It's just like the pinwheel behind the back, the same grabs, except we're doing it in the front. So we're coming across here. If I'm doing it by my armpit, I'm actually grabbing where my hands cross past each other, but the concept's still the same. It's just it's closer to my body, so I have to do it this way. Come across, grab it up top, come across, underneath. And guess what? If you can do it under the armpits, then you can make variations as well. So we can say hip, armpit, hip, armpit. So basically it's crossing under the armpit. But then the second time we do it, it looks different, but we're just pulling it down further by the hip. Hip and armpit. What's so cool about this is you can go into the pinwheel anytime from this motion too. So let me give you an example. Say I pass it over to here. Say I pass it over here, right? So we're doing the armpit. The moment this tucks behind my arm like this, I just drop it down behind me and it becomes a pinwheel. So front, the moment I get it underneath my armpit, I just keep going behind me and it becomes the pinwheel. Isn't that cool? And it's the same thing on the other side too. The moment I grab it, I can pull it up to my shoulder and make it in front. I know I just gave you a lot because I'm just showing you the transition point between the move I just showed you and the pinwheel is seamless. There's so many ways that you can get behind to in front. So all that I'm doing right here is essentially the moves that I just taught you. All that is just two techniques that I'm blending. I've blended them so well that it may look like more, but it's basically the front pattern that I have with the back pattern, and then I just happen to know all the transition points in between. So even just learning these two patterns here can give you a huge arsenal to play with. Let me know if you have questions on that one. I know I went through that a little bit fast, and it's just because you know the transitions now. You just have to, or you know the techniques, you just have to figure out where those transition points are. And it's almost always, you can almost always find it, but it's whenever there's something behind your back or whenever there's something in front of you, which is almost always happening. Whenever there's an opportunity, like when you're doing the pinwheel, whenever there's an opportunity like this space here, you can bring it up to the front, and then you can go into your front moves. And the moment something's in the back, you just keep it back there. The moment you have an opportunity to bring it in the front, yeah, you could go into the rudder, or you can go back into this too. It's crazy, right? Like, it's just insane. Like there's a ton of moves you can do just with what you guys have learned, just with that. And it gets more fun after the basics. But this is something to practice. I'm going to answer some immediate questions and see if Seth wants to come in. I know he has a trick or two that he would like to teach. All right. Can you show some? Oh, yeah. Okay, I already did that one. Thank you for these live streams, Ken. I want to get better at Chuck's and staff, and your videos help. Yeah, no problem. I'm just glad we have something. Like, I just feel like this is such a great idea, especially since we're all kind of quarantined in here. I'm glad it helps. All right. I'm going to let Seth take over for a second here. He's got some cool tricks of his own.
All right.
Let me just go to the main camera.
All right, so I guess we're just gonna start off with this.
That was the trick. That was the one we just taught.
Oh, really?
So that is the reverse figure eight. But we're kind of taking in the quadrants. That's the pinwheel. What's great about this, you guys, is he's demonstrating what I just taught. The combo, like the. What was the twist you did, though? Maybe you can teach that.
Sure. 1 sec. Let me see. So.
Sorry, I just put him on the spot. I thought it'd be really cool.
All right.
It's my son, you know. I'm all teary-eyed.
So we go like this. So whatever he was teaching you with this, and then like for that spin. So basically, I use my opposite hand, and I grab this side, and then you just turn with it, and it's really easy. So like,
How do you turn that? Show the turn. Do
Sure.
it nice and slow motion, because that's a
Okay.
nice turn.
and then you reach for it, grab it, you turn, and then you go in with the staff.
So you notice when he did his turn, he kept his plane very straight. It's almost like he did a rotor behind his back if you look. Can you do that again really slowly?
Sure.
So as he put it behind his back, he turned into it and it looks like he did a rotor just for a second, but then he exchanged it back into a pinwheel as soon as he turned away again. So go really slow on this one.
All right.
So he's going really slow.
Here we go.
It's just like me. That's as slow as I can go. He turns into it. It looks like it goes into a rotor. Can you even do slower? Like
Yeah,
the
sure.
moment you go into the rotor and turn, your turn especially, go like
Sure.
10% speed.
Here, let me get a little closer.
Go like 10% speed on those.
Yeah, sure.
So nice and slow. He's going to turn into it.
Yes.
Yep. He turns into it, and it's like a rotor for a second, but then he pulls it over into the front.
Here, I'll do it from this side. And you use this, grab that, and then you turn into it. You can switch sides too.
Turns are awesome. I haven't even gotten
Turns
into
are.
any turns at all yet. Hey, do you want to show the under the leg pass?
Yeah, sure.
I think that's a good one too.
So the under the leg pass, you're talking about this one where you just throw it, catch it?
Not even throw, just the pass.
Oh, just a pass like
Yeah.
that? Okay, yeah, sure.
So
So
how do you get in? What are
I
you
usually
doing
propel
before
it
you
using
get in?
like just a
Yeah.
regular figure eight. And then just like, so when I get over here to this side, so, and then it's pretty simple. I just swoop down like this, grab it. So figure eight, just swoop it like that under your leg and then grab it just like that.
Looks like your body has to lurch forward to create the space
Mm-hmm.
that you can get under your leg. Just for a second, the body lurches forward.
Looks good going fast. That one shouldn't take a terribly long time to learn, as long as you know how to do a figure eight.
Yeah, I've only showed him reverse figure eight from the right hand so far,
Sure.
but if you take the same things that we taught and just use the other hand, you should be able to get into that one
Mhm.
as well. Fantastic.
Yeah. Whoa. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
That was fun. Let me let's see here.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
All right, everyone. That's my son. And that's the staff basics class. I know there's a lot of things. There's always a lot of things to teach. Like, could I have gotten into throws? Could I have gotten into anti-spins or even horizontals? What I showed you was the foundation for those ninja fast movements that I do, because I feel like even though it's a little bit harder to start with, it in the long run, learning this, like these techniques, I feel like is the key to having a really awesome ninja style. So learn the other stuff too, and we can go over into that. We'll check into other live streams. I just feel it's really important to be able to nail those moves, especially. They just all flow into one another. So when I teach a new style or when I teach a prop, the most important thing for me is to teach something that you can do without thinking about it. And this is something that you can think about with your training too, because whatever you can do without thinking about it is what you're going to default to when you have to do harder moves. So before you have everything together, like when you learn a new prop, a really good strategy is to start by learning moves that you can do without thinking about it, that give you a lot of options and make it look nice and fluid. So that way you can focus on bigger moves. So if you learn everything I just taught you, then when you learn a new move, if you're in the middle of a performance or if you're just in the middle of a flow, you can think about those moves because you're doing this nice whirlwind of moves and you don't have to think about it. You see what I'm saying? So in my opinion, it's almost always better to get like subconscious moves first and get a nice foundation for how you can flow and create constant motion. And then you can put your awareness to other things. You don't even have to think about new moves. Another option is you can think about how you want to present the moves that you already do. You can think about where your open hand is, or you can focus on the audience, or you can think about a feeling or a thought. All these things come into play So yeah, that's why I've taught you one that's a little bit more tricky than if we just did a bunch of random techniques, the easiest random techniques. But this one is a little bit more of a formula, because when you can train that, you can get that down, then whatever you add on top of it can just go straight into your flow and you don't have to think about it. Let's see. I'm gonna read a few more, and then I'm gonna head out for today. Yeah, the push. Dropkick's course is the push. Yeah, you just push it, right? It's just right there. It's funny. You can have a staff and just push it with your hand. And you can create a whole style off pushes. I didn't even get into that. There's like a hyper style that I've devised. Usually you need like a lighter staff like this, but there's even like it's like a hyper style. There's like a hyper style that you can do with staff, which also deals with a lot of quick pushes. All right, I'm gonna go back here. So you can take even one technique, like the push, for instance, and say, well, what if I turn that technique into a style? What would that look like? And then I'm just playing around on the horizontal plane by pushing and bouncing it back and forth. It's kind of crazy, right? Let's see here. Derek says your kid is a stud with the staff, by the way. Thanks. I'm sure he really appreciates that too. In the blood, nice. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You know, the funny thing, he refuses to let me teach him, which is totally cool, you know, because I think he's like me, I guess, in that he wants to learn it all on his own. So, and Tyler Spinning Spades, I'm going to find the link. If you could message me, Tyler, with the link, because I don't think your link to your tutorials came up. I'll put it in the description of this live stream, because I think people should know about contact staff. So if you have any tutorials you want to share, just message me and I'll link you all up to it. Ike Flow says, these moves transition into loads of other props. Absolutely they do. I think the beauty, especially when you start working with multiple props, is you're going to see it as tools. Like when I look at nunchucks, I see a symmetrical prop that bends and folds, right? But the staff has a lot in common with it outside of the bending and folding. This is what makes it its character. So you're going to see what you want to do is find the relation between the props you already know with the new one. Find those relations, and that's where your foundations will start. But then you need to figure out, well, what makes this different? Because otherwise, why am I even spinning this prop if I'm just grabbing random moves from other props? So first you figure out the relation to get a good foundation for it. And then you look at what makes it unique, and that's going to take a little bit longer, but that will bring out the true character of the chuck or the staff or the double staff. Or if you made up your own prop, you can pretty much grab anything. A sock. If you grab two socks, you can spin it like poi, but they're lighter. So what else can you do? Well, you can do a lot faster bounces, you know, because it's lighter. Or if you grab just anything, even a book, you know, because it flips open, you might be able to do something with the open flipping book. I don't know. When you start looking at characteristics of props, you first think you relate to it by what you already know, but the goal is to use that as a foundation so you can bring out the true character, though. And that's what's going to take some time, because every single prop has its own unique character as well. I mean, for me, that's my approach to it. I hope you guys are all doing well. Sorry I was a little bit off today. My brain, you know, it's just some days I'm very laser focused, but today I'm just like, so, thanks again, everyone. Tomorrow I'm going to be teaching. What am I teaching tomorrow? Tomorrow I'm doing a performance class from 6 to 7. I'll probably do it with chucks, but I might mix chucks and staff. And basically that's just about presentation. The whole thing is just about how to be a little bit more engaging with it, or if you're going to perform in front of your friends or in front of an audience, how can you really pull them in and captivate it outside of just doing tricks? Because I'll get into this a little bit deeper. It's a little bit of philosophy too, but if you could imagine that tricks are like words and you're an author, really it's about the story you tell. It is definitely about the words you use, but it's about how you pull them together to say something, and that's how you communicate it to the audience. And tomorrow is a little bit about that, and then from 7 to 8, so that's 1 hour of performance training, and then the last hour is going to be open forum. You can ask me anything. I can go over any of those questions that you asked today. Just come over tomorrow. Even if you can't make the performance class, make sure you come to the open forum, because I'll pretty much here to answer all your questions. So again, be well, everyone. I know this quarantine is pretty crazy. I just want to see something here. I think it's really important that we just make the most out of every situation. I know that the approach, and I've seen this a lot on social media too, it's like when the ship is sinking, like you got to focus on swimming and seeing what you can create, you know? And I don't even know if the ship is sinking per se. There's a lot of good that can come from this. For instance, the fact that we're all together, the fact that I'm doing a live stream. I would have been coming back from Vegas right now, a little bummed about that. But here I am, like reaching out and teaching people new tricks. So, you know, it still works. As long as I can keep a roof over my head, I'm good. So I hope you guys are all doing good too. Thanks again. I've got one more tomorrow, and then depending on how everything goes this week, like I said, will depend on how many live streams I'll do next week. But I am planning to do at least once a week for a while. I have no idea. Like I said, I heard that the coronavirus, we could be social distancing on and off for up to a year and a half, is what I've read from multiple sources, not just one. So, like, even though I know that in America we're stuck for, 2 or 3 weeks, it probably gonna be a lot longer. So I'm kind of planning on camping out and trying to come up with new ideas. If you have any suggestions for what you'd like me to teach, I've got a lot of different props and I have a lot of different skills that I could teach you all. So send me a message or write a comment and I'm more than happy to hear. Till then, keep spinning, and I'm just gonna read one more time, make sure I didn't miss anything before I exit. Also the Facebook contact staff group, absolutely. My teacher always told me to treat soft weapons like hard weapons and hard weapons like soft weapons. That's fantastic. Absolutely, yeah. No, that's great. I have to think about that a little bit more as to what that could mean, but I can totally see that. And it's really funny because like with the staff, which is a line, you're mostly making circles. And with poi, which is a line, you're mostly making circles. But when people spin hoops, they're usually making straight lines. I don't know. It's interesting. Anyways, let me see. Feeling a little better tonight. Thanks again for everything. You're most welcome. Hope you all are doing well. Let me know. Send me a video if you were able to follow the staff video. I would love to see your progress. It'd be really cool to make sure that like people are able to get what I'm saying. If you need help or if you don't feel like explained well enough, let me know too, because I'm always willing to expand. I can say that live streams are a lot different than recording videos because I only get one take. I don't get any edits. And if I have a brain fart and my brain doesn't want to pick up or think of something, you just see me stammering online, and that's pretty fun. Anyways, have a good night, everyone, and I'll see some of you tomorrow.